This is the 120 film format. Introduced in 1901, it's now been around for 120 years, making it the oldest film format still in production. Today, colored ones are still being produced by the likes of Kodak and FUJIFILM. This one here is Ilford, which makes only black and white films. This one here being the Delta 3200, so ISO 3200, one of their fastest films. They've also got some special ones like Ilford XP2, for example, which is a black and white film that's processed as though it's a color film, so C41 process. And of course, Lomography makes them in a number of emulsions and different effects. So Lomography has them in both black and white and color, in their standard artistic type of varieties like Metropolis and Red Scale and Purple, etc. And also black and white ones. So a 120 film has no, of all the film formats that's still commonly used today, well, I say that, but today we only get 35mm, 110 and 120. The rest of the other formats are only available as vintage stock. So even APS films like this one here, as I mentioned in my other video, this is by far the most advanced and most capable film in terms of technology, because it's the only film format that has a digital data recording mechanism. That one's gone out of production in 2011, so only vintage film format, only vintage stock is left. This one here is still being produced, so it says the expiry date is July 2023. So anyway, I was saying 120 film is the only format that is completely, I should say, flexible, maybe it's the right words, and by that I mean there are no sprockets and no cutouts whatsoever. So I'm just going to get one open to show you. So I should be doing this in the dark, but for the sake of this video, I'll try my best not to mess this up while the room is pretty well lit. So this is what the film looks like, and all it is a roll of continuous film. So as I mentioned, there are no cutouts, no sprockets, so you're free to expose it however you like. Now, in terms of film formats that come in rolls of film, the 120 film, also known as medium format, is the highest resolution film format available today, and the reason for that is the surface area is the largest. So I've just opened this box and just to see what's on the inside. It actually tells the users how to process the film if you want to do it yourself. Now, what I've also done is I've taken a strip of processed negatives from a previous roll. So as we can see, this is was set to 12 exposures. So we've got 3 frames per strip, and there are 4 strips of negatives. And if we have a look at one of them, so we can see that the pictures are a lot larger than would be from a 35 millimeter film format. So as I was saying, there are no sprockets, so you're free to do all kinds of things like panorama or whatever. It's just a free-flowing film. However, you would notice that there are numbers, marks below the frames. So there's 1 there and 2 there, and that's just to assist with reprinting and stuff like that. It's just to help you identify the frames, but there's no strict rules around that. So there should be another, we can't see it on this one, but this is a Kodak Portra. You can see the name of the film there. It says Kodak Portra 160. So with some of the film manufacturers, what you get is a series of numbers for 12 exposures and another for 16 exposures. Yeah, this one only does it for 12. If we have a look at cameras that use 120 film, like this one here, you can see that there's a window at the back, and this I should just open this up actually, since I need to do so anyway. And this color filter, this gives the similar wavelength of light that's used by safe lights in dark rooms. So this prevents the film from being exposed or fogged up. Yeah, so sorry. So you can see a slider here that says 12 or 16. So the thing with 120 film is the on the paper, on the backing paper, they are obviously we can't see it now, but once the exposure part of the film actually starts, there are normally 3 lines in parallel that mark the frame numbers. And basically, if you switch this to say 16, then that gives you 16 exposures. So at the moment it's set to 12, so 12 exposures. So what that means is the numbers that show through that part of the film will be spaced out a lot more. So you only get 12 exposures from a roll. If you flip it to 16, then this will show you only the numbers printed on the lower part of the backing, and they are spaced out a lot less. So you get more exposures. You get 12. There's also a third one further down that's used for only 10 exposures. So normal 120 film has 3 of those lines running in parallel to indicate where they are. And the reason why you need that is, again, because there are no sprockets, no holes, so the cameras will not know when to stop reeling the film. So the way a 120 film camera works is you get what's called a take-up spool. Now this spool is identical to the one in the film, so you can get this on their own, or if you're struggling then to get one, then just get one from a new roll of film. You should always have one handy in your camera. The reason for that is you need to use it to take up the new film. So I'm going to put this in here. This is the take-up spool. As you can see, there's a ratcheting mechanism, so you can't go backwards. Now this roll of film goes into this side of the camera, and the next thing we have to do is so this is the 120 format is the most difficult to load. Even 35mm is a lot easier. So the first thing to do is to decide whether we want to use to get 12 or 16 shots out of the roll of film. So I think for the purpose of this, I'll probably leave it as 12, only because 3200 is a lot more grainy, so you want to use more of the film surface. But I can always change that before the film reaches the markings. Anyway, so I should mention this white paper. This white paper here is called the backing paper, and it's completely light proof. It's completely opaque. It's easier to sort of remove the tape and all that while the film is out of the camera, but I've had accidents before where the film, the roll of film just became loose and it just unwound itself, and obviously that exposes the film straight away. So it says unexposed. So again, this backing paper is completely light proof. So you pull out the tab and try very hard not to let this roll become loose. So this is actually the most difficult part of the loading process, especially when I'm trying to do it on camera. So you want to get this part of the tab into the take-up spool as far as it will go. So we need a little bit more, and as you can see, it's not grabbing the film, so we need to try again. Oh, this is not going well. Okay, it's starting to grab the film. So as soon as you're confident that it's going to grip onto the rest of the film, then make sure the spools are still lined up with the hole and slide the camera back on. Now obviously this differs based on the different cameras. So this is what it's like. The next step would be to advance the film by turning this knob until the numbers start to show up in the window. So this will be pretty much my last opportunity to decide. Oh, actually, I just realized to use 16 exposures, there is a need to install a mask inside the camera to reduce the frame size. So I haven't got that mask installed. So I'm forced to use 12 exposures now, because that gives me the full size of the frame. So now we've committed to 12. We've got to stick with it. So I'm just going to keep turning this Up Spool. And I'm not 100% sure it's actually reeling the film in. I can feel it getting a bit tighter. Yep, I can see the film moving. It's hard to see, but eventually we'll get to a series of dots or arrows that show us where we are. Okay, we're about to get to the point where the indications start to show. So the first thing we will normally see is a vertical line running down the width of the film, which is coming up right about now. So that's kind of one of the start indications, if that makes sense. And as we continue to reel it, we should start to see the reason why I'm being a bit ambiguous about this is it depends on the manufacturer of the film. So different manufacturers use different types of markings and lines, etc. So I'm not 100% familiar with Ilford. So let's just go along. Now, the fact that we have to advance it so much to get to the exposure bit is quite good, because that means there's a bit of a safety margin. So if the source reel of film comes loose while loading, at least the actual usable bit of film may still be protected, assuming it's the first few layers of the film that comes loose. So we have to keep going until we see some more. Okay, so normally when we start seeing arrows like this, so some film manufacturers use dots that get progressively larger. So this is kind of a warning or advance indication that we are about to reach a usable frame. So normally we get a series of arrows, and the next indication should be the frame number. Okay, so this film is a bit different. So now we start to see a series of dotted lines that make up circles. So the circles are getting larger and larger. So this is kind of like the final warning. And then we get to the frame number 1. So we're going to stay there. Now, if I slide this up, you see that we don't actually see a frame number here, because frame number for 16 exposures have already gone past. So remember, I was telling you how we can get more exposures for 16 exposures. So we'll stick to that. So 1. So once the picture is taken, we just have to advance it. We'll see the arrows again, the circles, and we have to stop where it says number 2. And at the end of the roll of film, again, you probably see lines and stuff like that. Just keep advancing it until you're 100% sure that every bit of the film and backing paper has been taken up by the take up spool. You then tape it nice and tight, and just to make sure it doesn't come loose in transit, and you send that off for processing. So that's 120 film.